In the last lecture, we saw the pre-independence, pre-history of comics, where we looked into the four aspects where we could draw the history of comics from, and then the famous children's magazine Chanda Mama, moving on to Amar Chitrakatha, and then the golden age of mini comics in India, and discussing about the Hindi superhero comics from Dhruv to Doga and Nagraj also. Now we are going to talk about gendering Hindi adventure comics and the symbiotic masculinity. This is the continuation to what we discussed in the last lecture. So, in the portrayal of love and marriage as these superheroes are situated, we see that these comics reflect broader societal attitudes toward relationship and duty. So, all these superheroes, Nagraj, Dhruv and Doga, they have a sense of responsibility. That is what is depicted from the comics. So even though they have been shown to be very heteronormative, very masculine, yet their flings and relationships do not come in the way of their duty. While superheroes like Dhruv and Nagraj navigate multiple love interests, so Dhruv and Nagraj have been shown to have multiple love interests. Their commitment to serving the nation remains paramount. So it is shown again as re-established how their masculinity equates with the national security, and that is the of utmost importance. This tension between personal reflection, relationship and national duty mirrors the complexities of modern contemporary Indian society. So, how the modern contemporary Indian society is? It is reflected through these characters. Our society also is in ways very modern and also a complex mix of several other things, where at some times we think about the duty towards the nation, and in the second moment we think about our familial love and relationships. Overall, the evolution of Hindi superhero comics reflects a dynamic interplay between cultural narratives and socio-political contexts. So, if we situate it in cultural narratives, how they have been shown to be very normative in ways, and again, how if we situate it amongst symbiotic masculinity, how they are a symbol of what a masculine figure looks like or serves as amongst the socio-political context and in the popular imagination. Through these characters, we see that the comics engage with themes of nationalism, gender dynamics, and societal changes, offering both entertainment and commentary on contemporary Indian society. So, they are in a way also the embodiment of the contemporary Indian society, where everyone in the society in general are dealing with nationalism or everyday nationalism, also the gender dynamics, which is always up for questioning and discussion, and the societal changes, how women are also coming into play with these characters, though secondary, but they also have superpowers and helping in fighting against the national security issues, etc. Now, we discussed the superheroes and the idea of masculinity. Now, we have Chandika. Now, Chandika again is situated in the socio-cultural and cultural religious context, where this name comes from from the goddess Kali, and Kali's another name is also Chandika, where she is known to be someone bringing destruction, equated with Shiva, the tendencies of Shiva. So a mysterious masked person with long blonde hair, wearing a figure hugging purple blue catsuit, in the fourth superhero comic of Dhruv series called Swarg Ki Tabahi, Destruction of Heaven. So again, destruction is being related to Chandika, and this is the first episode where she is introduced. We further see that her how she looks like has been discussed in detail. She has blonde hair, and she also wears a very western kind of outfit, which is figure hugging purple and blue cat suit. Further, in her non-superheroine avatar, she reverts back to being a ordinary human called Sachveta, a docile sister of Dhruva. But whenever required, she metamorphosizes and changes into Chandika. Owing largely to her blonde hair, Chandika appears Western. So at 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 first we might get confused uh, from the color of her hair, because she looks, maybe she's not Indian, or maybe she's Indian but does not stay in India. So all these kind of narratives erupting from the color of her hair, which is blonde. And then the readers, but they know that she's Indian. The dichotomy is usually indicative of three purposes. So, what are the dichotomies that are being discussed here in relation to Chandika's look? The divided dynamics representing Chandika with Western characteristics, while we know that she is Indian, gradually introduce Indian superheroines to readers accustomed to Western heroines, facilitating their acceptance in genres like adventure and science fiction. Now, this is also common in other aspects when you try to introduce a new concept. So, being a superheroine, and for Indian audience, it is new. In India, they had not seen superheroines, and if suddenly you just introduce them uh, from someone being very Indian and then transforming, people would not be able to comprehend that. Just for example, we see when discussing queer cinema, we have films like Shubh Mangal Zyada Saavdhan, where the queer idea is introduced through semi-urban discourses, because the if you want to reach to the larger audience, it is in a way better to reach them through semi urban people, because urban people, they already have the idea, but how are you going to introduce them to these people in a roundabout manner, giving them clues from here and there, making them understand things in a certain way, which is not required in the urban population. So here also we see, when you first time introduce a superheroine, they are doing it in a way that they can understand, making her look like Western female superheroes. Now, Chandika's appearance as Western yet Indian adds an exotic allure. So the second purpose is to add some sort of exotic allure to the comic, laying the foundation for her possession of extraordinary abilities. So she has these extraordinary abilities. Now they are trying to introduce this extraordinary abilities by laying foundation that she is exotic looking, and finally enhancing her mystique and appeal. uh, Now the thing that they are trying to discuss about Chandika is in ways brought in which feminist critiques would question why they are portraying her as Western. Why cannot they portray her to be Indian and then bring her and associate her with power? Why it has to be somewhat which is more westernized or in Western feminism, relying on that? And the third approach is by portraying Chandika as proficient in science and technology. Now, women, again, when we talk about STEM, we see very less women in science and technology. Therefore, bringing in Chandika and portraying her proficient in science and technology is also referring that now India has changed, and India has changed to a level where we see that these roles can be validated, and Chandika is doing that for many women of that this contemporary time. So the comic validates women's dynamic roles in nuclear vocation, so in skill based science and technology kind of fields where traditionally dominated by men, reflecting societal shift since 1990s neoliberal India. So after liberalization, we see and observe the change happening through Chandika. Now coming to regional comics, and while coming to regional comics, Bengal again, as we discussed in print and iconography books, we go back again and again to Bengal. They have been the pioneer in bringing art and also comics. So when we talk about regional comics, we see that the first instance of any image and a text accompanying each other goes back to 1816, and then in a rare edition of Anand Mangal published by Ganga Kishore Bhattacharya, seems to be the first ever evidence where there is a picture and some text coming along with it. Now, how did that happen and from where? Calcutta School Book Society started issuing of a series titled Animal Biography in 1822, and it was a woodcut painting. So what they used to do, that woodcut painting, they'll put some color on that and they'll imprint it on the book or paper or whatever it is, and then that is how people got introduced and how readers got introduced to this animal biography. These woodcuts were done by John Lawson, or rather call it Reverend John Lawson. So he was arrested also by the East India Company, and Abhijit Gupta, who has talked a lot about and worked also in print culture, gives us an introduction of where regional comics came in Bengal. Abhijit Gupta introduces comics in the Bengal circle, and this talk was organized by the Kolkata Center for Creativity, and he's a professor of English department, Jadavpur University. Now, further, what it says about the introduction of comics in Bengal, it was mid 20th century and considered to be the golden age of Bengal comics. Use of comics in advertisement, public awareness campaigns, and mentioning examples of comics like promoting UCO Bank, then there is Borolin, Poppins, and Horlicks also. It is very interesting to note that comics were being used to advertise UCO Bank or public sector organizations. These caricatures and sketches of comics were also reported on social issues like Bengal famine of the 1940s. Now, he also mentions Shuktara, a magazine published shortly after India's independence, mentioned a major platform for comics during this period. So, Shuktara is the one which gives kind of a platform for the artists, for the cartoonists, and also the comic artists. Artists like Narayan Debnath, who is known for his unique onomatopoeia, created popular characters like Handa Bonda, Bantul the Great, and Nonte Fonte. So, we can give it to Devnath for creating such refreshing characters and also giving a new form of enjoyment to its readers. Bantul was seen to be participating in India-Pakistan war in one or more two instances. So, bringing in again the politics that was going around at that time in India and situating Bantul in that. During the 1960s and 70s were predominantly science fiction and biopics. Moyuk Chaudhary was one of the most prominent faces of this period. His work Agantuk is a cult classic, especially with his artwork depicting animals and human beings in action, had a huge fan base. And he drew up until before emergency, and we see other upcoming cartoonists that we'll discuss getting censored during emergency. Then in a particular children's magazine started publishing translated works of Western comics in Bengali. Then a particular children's magazine started publishing during that time, and this publishing was translated works of Western comics. So we see now Western comics also entering Bengal in translation, and one significant work that we will discuss will be Tintin. How Tintin became Bengali. So, uh, Sarnath Banerjee, one of the graphic novelists, says that he has grown up reading Tintin. And in Hindustan Times interview, he mentioned this, the influence of the Belgian comic series Tintin in his upbringing years of 70s and the 80s. Tintin is widely translated, but Bengali is the first language in India in which Tintin got its first translation since its introduction in Anand Mela magazine in 1975. So, we can locate in the year 1975 when Tintin was first uh, published in Bengali. One of the primary reasons behind this popularity is the extraordinary vernacularization by renowned Bengali poet Nirendranath Chakrabarti. So, he was the man who made it so pleasing and appealing for its reader because of the vernacularization that he did. In fact, Bengali was the first Indian language, as I told you, but significantly important that it was translated from French and not from English. So, we see that Tintin was translated from the original French at the time when Hergé was still alive. So, Hergé is the real creator of Tintin, and he was still alive when Bengali was translated from French. One episode of Tintin which is very important to note, and it also tells about the popularity of Bengal. There is one strong connection that comes in the episode Flight 714. So, there is Tintin along with Professor Calculus and Captain Haddock. They are traveling to Sydney to attend an exploration space conference, and in that journey they just stop to the flight stops in Jakarta to refuel, and the name of that particular airport is called Jakarta's Kemayoran Airport. Now, Dr. Calculus, who has a hearing problem, he is being explained by Haddock as to where they are, and because of his hard hearing, he later hears Rangoon in the English version of the title. So, instead of Kemaroyang, Dr. Calculus hears Rangoon. So, in the English version it is Rangoon, but in the French original he has heard him as Chander Nagar. So, Chander Nagar is actually a place in Bengal, and so it is so important for Tintin and and Bengal, and as well as Hergé. Again, Hergé himself was apparently keen aware of the enormous popularity of his work in Bengal, and we also see that he used to get a lot of fan mails from Bengal in the 1970s and 1980s, and made up of letters from his young Bengali readers. So, the connection between Tintin and Bengal is quite extraordinary. Comics in the new millennial we see is more like activist kind of comics that came, and little that we would like to discuss, and not leaving behind the legacy of Amar Chitra Katha, we see many other comics coming in. One activist comics called Vivaka Lok coming in, that focuses on subaltern plots, basically talking about the marginalized class and their stories, very local stories, very critical in nature, and but the overarching theme is Hindu paradigm. The next we have new generation comics such as brought in by Shekhar Kapoor and Deepak Chopra. They used to own Gotham Comics also, and later on it came to be known as Liquid Comics. They came up with a comics called Vimanika, which is focused on Hindu mythology, and this is like the new millennial comics where you see digital interface with cool stylistics and catering to the young readers of India and abroad. Other alternatives that came during this new millennial era was Sufi comics of Islamic history, which was brought in by two brothers from Bangalore, that is Muhammad Ali and Muhammad Arif. And app-based web comics also made an entry because of the digitalization, the coming of internet. Uh, Igor Baranko was one of the renditions of Mahabharat which came as a web comics. Rise of web comics could be seen, one by Rachita Taneja, which is sanitary panels. Next we have green humors, then we have royal existentialist, and many more followed. These are two very famous of this category of web comics. Now, another one we have, which is Priya Shakti, combating rape culture in India. So, it is after the 2012 Delhi rape, a group of people came along, and especially it was Ram Devineni's project after 2 years of the incident, which resulted in a workshop, and that workshop ultimately gave momentum to the creation of what we now know as Priya Shakti, combating rape culture in India. And all the copies of Priya Shakti are available free to read and download in the website. And this superhero, let's say it refer to it as superhero and not heroine, has risen in India in the wake of the brutal gang rape. And along with that, uh, she is riding on a tiger. So the picture that is shown in this web comics is she's riding on a tiger and fights back against sexual violence with the help of goddess Parvati and tiger. Priya was named gender equality champion by the UN woman. Now comes green humor, combating climate crisis with humor. Now, we know that it was a day-to-day discussion, and also we had a environmental studies classes, but not limiting to that discussion, Rohan Chakrabarti with bringing in this green humor bridges this gap between integration of world life tales into our daily conversation through his amusing depiction. Moreover, he sheds light on the how human conflicts impact the natural and the animal realm. So, it is because of mostly the problem starts with the human, but who suffer are the animals and the birds. So, in one of the combating this climate crisis cartoon, there is a century, a bird century, and it is two flamingos are flying, and it's written like in a comment, Maharashtra seems a lot less magnetic to me nowadays. So this is the comment made by the flamingos that are flying and going, and it was indeed a flamingo sanctuary, and all there is a lot of deforestation that has happened. There are no trees left, and therefore these birds are moving out, they are migrating. And there is a street where there are workers who are mending the roads, and it is written road work, so that signboard is there. So it in ways invoke a kind of thought that human for their own greed have killed many species and still not trying to battle climate change or other environmental related issues. We have web comics by Krutika Susarla. She got an Instagram, she started an Instagram series with this 36 days of type project to spotlight significant organization and individuals, where each day she used to put a cartoon with alphabet starting from A to Z, and each day she is in a way talking about one issue related to Indian feminism or gender. A starts with androgyny and Z ended with zeal. So we have female other features topics like the Pink Chaddi campaign and Satya Rani Chada's anti-dowry movement. Susarla's inclusive representation and meticulous research aims to address these complexities around feminism in India, including its intersectionality with religion and caste. So she has presented it very well in her comics or web comics rather. So we have G that she discusses with gender, and there is a in the background the alphabet G, and a man dressed up like a woman wearing these makeup, lipstick, and also some ornaments, and the discourse could raise again what Butler talked about gender performance, how gender is performance and not biological. So it brings in those discourses again by her 36 days of this type project. And next we have Rachita Taneja, sanitary panels that she talked about, an attempt to sanitize the mindset of the society at large. Sanitary panel employs simply very simple utilized line drawings that through thought bubbles and discuss a variety or a varied array of discourses in and around sanitary, how people are not having discourse over it, finding it to be a taboo. So she is trying to break these barriers, these taboo, and have discussions, more and more discussions over period. Next we have adult comics, and this is also as important as the political and the activism comics. Now the adult comics, transgressive private fantasies that the name has talked about, it has also elements of the what Sanjay Srivastav calls as in Hindi detective fiction, where the line of soft porn kind of emerges and in what places they are situated and to be found. So comics also brings in these discourses to the forefront, and the two very famous adult comics, one is Savita Bhabhi and the other is Velamma. They have been situated in adult comics, and we also see that they kind of send in something called censorship, and what is the lines between this morality, sending it into a tizzy, particularly because they proliferate through the unruly mediums of the internet. So they are moving into people's houses in unruly ways, which people often think to be amoral. Comic book characters such as Savita Bhabhi and Velamma, what Sara Ahmed calls sticky objects, objects that are saturated with affect as sites of personal and social tension. So it is very personal. At the same time, it is taken to be like a social tension. Everyone thinks about it. Maybe people also watch and read these, but when it comes to discourse and discussions, it is seen to be something very immoral, something outside of the discourse of society. And then we see representation of carnal fantasies coming out through these comics. They are marked by non-material erotics, that is erotic charge of two-dimensional, non-fleshy bodies, as well as an immaterial domesticity within the internet. So these are characters who are akin to everyday domesticity. They are regular people through which they are bringing in the fantasies of mostly the middle class people. In the context of what Sanjay Srivastav, for example, talks of footpath pornography. They are like very cheap yellow kind of Hindi print materials that are sold in transient spaces and offers the urban poor fantasies of transgressive desires, security. So who are these people on the footpaths? They are basically migrants who have come to these urban spaces to find a living or make a living, and while they live this life of urban poor, we see that they are feeding themselves from these what they call as footpath pornography, these books where they find these transgressive desires, seductive Western women, and extramarital affairs. Srivastav points Savita Bhabhi is a part of that middle class sexual cultures, something opposed to footpath pornography. So, footpath pornography on one hand is about Western women, but when it is situated in the adult comics, we see it is about the fantasies of the middle class, where their desires in a way are fulfilled through these two characters. What we see in comics and books such as Savita Bhabhi and Velamma then is an appropriation of the footpath aesthetics that is transposed into the mobile space of the internet. Now, what if we compare to footpath pornography, this is an appropriate version, which is Savita Bhabhi and Velamma, and now it has moved on to our mobile spaces through internet and digital media. With these adult comics comes censorship as well. Now, in one of the episodes, the 10th episode of Savita Bhabhi, which was titled Banungi Main Miss India, features a famous yesteryear's film star named Jeet Kumar. And this Jeet Kumar is somewhat resembles the very great superstar Amitabh Bachchan from Kabhi Alvida Na Kehna, which was a film directed by Karan Johar in 2006. And it ruffled some feathers, such as that of when Karan Johar, the director, alleged that the makers of Savita Bhabhi exploited the actor's look, over which the production house has complete claims. So, again, the issue of copyright or censorship comes into play when it is about the adult comics. Savita Bhabhi ran into trouble with the Indian government as well when their website got blocked by the Department of Telecommunication, Ministry of Communication and Technology in July 2009. And then the people, the creators of Savita Bhabhi, who were based in Europe, were shocked because they did not even get a letter stating that from tomorrow it will be banned. It was just a spur of moment thing when they come to know that it has been banned. Now, this again stirred some uh, talk amongst people who used to read adult comics, and Deshmukh, one of the founders of the site, floated the Save Savita project, calling it an attempt to give a voice to Savita Bhabhi fans and a resistance against selective internet censorship. So, it raises a lot of question on censorship, what the censorship thinks should be banned, or the not giving the autonomy to the people to decide what they want to read.